All right. Are there any outstanding questions? And by outstanding, I don't mean like awesome. I mean like still out there questions about modes. Great. It should have been a nice little like warm-up lab. Are there any? Do we have any reason to talk about it again? Going, gone. Quick survey. How many people remember how I asked you guys to turn things in? Can someone with a hand suggest how to do it? Shoot, what's your name again? Benji.
There's the hacker thing and drive.
Cool. Great. Perfect. So there's two different things. Number one, hacker rank. You will note that I am never going to look at that. That is for you. That is not for me. Okay? So that is an opportunity for you guys to check your answers. You are welcome to not turn anything in on hacker rank. With that said, if you don't turn things in on hacker rank and you don't actually click the little submit button at the bottom, I will have no proof that you've actually attempted it, which is fine, except that if you lose points on your labs and you're frustrated with me as to why that is, I don't have a lot of sympathy just in terms of like, I've given you an opportunity to test your stuff, so if you haven't shown to me that you've taken advantage of it, then how can I give you points for it, right? So I would say I am more likely to give you points back if you have successfully turned in hacker rank stuff. With that said, that is not for your grade, right? Your grade is turning it on the drop. Make sure to structure things correctly. I'm going to run my little turn-in checker today once I fix it because it's broken. Because I broke it trying to run it earlier. But once it's working, I will run it today, and we should be good to go. Cool. Today we're going to be talking about sentence. Some of you guys have probably already started this, and that's fine, right? With that said, I'm sure there's, maybe not sure, but it's possible there are things that are missing. So we're going to zoom through quickly what's in here. I'm just going to recap how I would say, well, if this were an AP question, right, which this is a former AP question, right, this is how I would read this, right? I would read this first sentence, right? Then I would briefly scan over what's actually in here, right? I would look for things like instance variables, right? Constructors, things like to be implemented in part A, right? That's a nice important little one, right? We got some accessor methods, aka getters, right? We've got some other things, implementation not shown, right? So these are things that are already done for you. Would this be a handwritten AP question? Right? Down here, here's part B, here's part C, right? Now, with that said, I'm cruel. I don't believe I've actually given you remove blanks, lowercase, or remove punctuation. With that said, they're not hard, right? All three of those are like 2 lines, maybe, right? Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom through quickly how to do a couple of these things, right? And then I'm going to kind of, similar to last time, just unleash you guys on them, right? What I would like you to do, take about 30 seconds, talk to your neighbor about 3 methods, these 3. The 3 that say implementation not shown. So we got remove blanks, lowercase, and punctuation. You'll note they're all separate, right? So first off, let's just maybe look at like the method header for remove blanks. What does this take in? What does it return? Right, just think for yourself for like 10 seconds. Cool, Aaron, what does this take in? What does it return?
It takes in a string and it returns the string but without any spaces.
Beautiful. Absolutely, right? Nailed it. Right, cool. Talk to your neighbor for about 30 seconds. How do you do remove blanks? Cool, let's bring it back in. I'm just going to call on somebody, and then we'll take suggestions for other strategies. Matthew, what did you guys come up with?
Actually, I confused something with Python.
Okay, that's fair. Diana, what did you guys come up with?
We said that, well, Lizzie, we were talking about it, and then she said, Innovation said, create a new string, and then just use an if statement, and if there's a space, then we move on, and then we just add everything else.
Cool, so loop over, add each non-space char. Right? That seems like a perfectly reasonable strategy. Right? We look at every single character once. Does anyone have any other strategies that are not that? Hari.
Would you like if the string variable is s, you could just s dot replace all, then in parentheses, just like first thing to space and then just like.
Cool. If you use something called replace all, if you've never seen it before, it's cool. It does some stuff. I'm going to suggest that we don't do this unless you know what a regular expression is and how they work. With that said, if you do, go to town. Right? Cool. What other strategies do we have that are reasonable? Rohits.
You should do an index of and substring from something to space, and then keep doing that until index of is not -1.
Cool. Keep calling index of. Right? That's going to give us the first spot of a space. Right? Everything before that are all non-space characters. Add those and then keep ripping stuff off. Right? Great strategy. Any other ones? There's one other good one. I would say my most preferred strategy is not on here. Has anyone ever used a method called split before?
That's what it is.
Great. Please take a second. Please Google the split method. Here's a nice little recap how to Google methods. You Google your class name, string Java, right? I should say this is one way of doing it, right? This will give you our wonderful thing. What's this called again? API, right? We scroll down to what method we're looking for. I'm looking for split. You can also do Control F. Right, cool. Splits this string around matches of the given regular expression. Again, this comes back to this idea of regular expressions. Basically what this does is this will give you an array of every single thing without the character that you're splitting on. So for example, if we split on spaces, or actually here's some examples over here. Right? What the heck? What is this person doing? That's weird. Well, anyways, if you split on spaces, you'll get back an array of strings, which will basically be all of your words. Right? So, anyways, that's another reasonable strategy. All of these are reasonable strategies. Just bring this back up. All right, split. I would say this is a method that we will be using a number of times this year. But again, do whatever's most comfortable for you. Right? Cool, lowercase. What string method do we want to use for that? To lowercase. Cool. I'm not going to talk anymore about that. Remove punctuation. I get this question often of like, what punctuation are we talking about? Right? The answer is everything on your keyboard. Okay? If you can see it, it's fair game. Right? So if I go back over here, I don't know, sure. Here, I'm just going to edit my little unit schedule. Right? So like all that stuff. Right? All this stuff. Right, I literally just like held shift and went across my number line. All that stuff, everything you can see on your keyboard, fair game. Right? I am not going to be using weird characters. Right? If you Google an ASCII table, if you've never seen one of these before, that's fine. Right? But I would say there's a decent chance you saw one of these last year. Right? So we're not talking about weird characters like the del character. Right? Does anyone know what that is? It's a delete character. I have literally no idea what that is. I don't know. Right? Here's another one. FS, a file separator. What the heck is that? I have no idea. That is not a fair game character on our past-in things. Right? So it is an actual char, but I'm never going to be testing for that. Right? So it's just the normal things. Right? Tilde's fair game. Del character, not fair game. Cool. All right. Going back over here. Oh, in terms of remove punctuation, I don't know. I would say this strategy right here is a pretty good one. Right? Loop over your entire thing. Check and see, is it a character? Right? You might want to call index of. Typically what I do is I build a big string of all of our chars and then just check and see each one, is it in there? But it's up to you. Right? There's a number of good strategies. Yes, ma'am.
Possible flex, we have that like the everything not a character, like all the letters are like within certain range and asking like can you make numbers?
Yeah, that's fair too. Right? If you want to just check for ASCII values, that's a reasonable way to do it. Totally. Right. Cool. Now we got a couple other things. So we have part A, which is a constructor. Right? Can someone in English maybe talk to your neighbor? What is the point of a constructor? Talk to your neighbor for about 15 seconds. Cool, let's bring it back in. Kiroy, what is the point of a constructor?
To create or instantiate a certain object.
Beautiful, to create or instantiate a certain object, right? That's what we use it for. With the code inside of a constructor, what is that going to actually do? Give you a hint, it has something to do with these guys. Yep, should set the instance variables. Right? That should happen in your constructor. Cool, part A is 2 lines. Right? You got 2 instance variables, they should both be set. Yeah? Cool, a bit further down, we have is palindrome and is palindrome. Quickly take a scan over the headers. Right? All the characters in the headers. What's different about the 2? Just look over those real quick. Cool, so differences, who can spot one? Robin.
Private.
Cool, one is public, one is private. Right? That's one static. Right? What else? We got one last difference. Shoot, what's your name again? Ahan. What's our last one?
One has like instance variables.
Yep, arguments, right? One has arguments, one does not. Right? So what that means, right, in terms of this stuff, if we were working with a driver class, right, which one are we going to be calling? First one or the second one?
Second.
How do we know it's the second one?
It's not.
Because it's public. Also static, right? Does anyone want to try to take a stab as to what does static mean?
It's not called as part of an object. Like an object can't call it. It's just its own thing.
Sure, right? Instead of being tied to an object, it is tied to a class, right? Even if we instantiate 5,000 different sentence objects, there's only going to be one of these guys, right? You can't mess around with the instance variables, right? Now, with that said, how are these 2 methods related in terms of like their code? Any guesses? If this thing is private, we can't call it from anywhere else. What are we gonna use it for?
It's probably used for like when you want to use like your own like string to put in for some reason, and the public one's used for like your like my sentence.
I'm sorry, I was distracted by my iPad. Can you say that again?
So the private one is like an alternate method.
Uh-huh.
Like when you want to use like
Close. Yeah.
The public one calls the private.
Yeah, right. So this one's actually going to call this one. Right? So we're going to take this guy, right? This one's going to be one line. Right? This thing is going to be return is palindrome are my sentence, right? And then 0 and however big your thing is. Right? In terms of this method, I would say there are 2 different ways to do it. One is iteratively, one is recursively. I challenge you guys to do it recursively, although you will get full points if you do it iteratively. You'll note that the recursive solution for this is very short. We're talking 2 lines, right?
What's the point of having 2 methods then? It's just
Great question. The question was, what's the point of having 2 methods if one's just going to call the other? No?
One is static.
That is true, but that's not the point of it.
It might be faster, the driver class.
It's a reasonable idea. It's not, but that's a reasonable idea. Right? Let me give you a hint. If we only had one, which one would it have to be? The first one or the second one?
Second one.
Why the second one?
Because it has to be using the driver class as well. It's private. It's not.
Okay, fair enough. Actually, all right, that's a reasonable point. There is no better answer, right? We could have done it with either one. Let's say this first one was our only one. And it was public,
Oh.
right? So it's public. It's the only one we have. Why is that not great?
Well, because you have to feed one sentence back in, which you wouldn't necessarily know if it was better than one.
Sure, right? We'd have to feed the instance variable back into itself, which is just dumb, right? That's bad programming, right? So this one certainly does not need it, right? The reason why we have 2 is because if we want to write a recursive solution, right, we need to have some arguments so we can write some base cases, right? Cool. So we have what, an hour and 5 minutes left. What I would like you to do, discuss with your neighbor. What are our base cases for our recursive solution for is palindrome? What are our base cases?
And with the string, the center of the sentence.
Yeah, talk to your neighbor. What are our base cases?
Center of the
I think
sentence.
we look at each other's works
I don't know how to write it for the
Cool, you guys talk about it already? You're typing away, does that mean you're done? Cool, let's go through a specific example. Can someone give me a fun palindrome?
Hannah.
Sorry, race car. Cool, love it. Great. Right? If we're going to call this guy, right, this is going to be our S. Right, we got start is going to be here. End is going to be here. Right? In our recursive solution, quick pause. Hello? Nope. Cool. So, in our recursive solution, what's the general idea of what's going to be happening to these arrows? Yeah, right? They're going to go like that. Right? Cool. Are we in a base? So I would say there's a couple different base cases for this. And let's look at another example. Race cab. Cool. First off, is this one a palindrome?
Yes.
Is this one a palindrome? Cool, nailed it, right? That one's easy. Right? Cool. Are either one of these in a base case right now? Why is the second one in a base case?
Characters are different.
Right, the characters are different, right? There's one of our base cases, right? If they don't actually match, we know we don't have a palindrome, right? We don't need to go any further, right? We're done, right? In this one over here, the left one, right? They do match. Does that mean it's a palindrome?
No.
No. What does that mean, Matt?
It just means it might be a palindrome.
Mm-hmm. Then what do we need to do next?
We need to have the 2 arrows going. That one plus one and
Yep.
that one minus one.
Absolutely, right? We just march them slightly more towards the middle, right? So one base case is the letters don't match. What's the other base case?
They do match.
I would not call that a base case. I would call that a recursive case.
Less than or equal to
Sorry?
n. Start is either less than or equal to n.
Yeah, right? Something along the lines of if start and end have met or passed each other or something, right? Something along those lines. I'm going to leave that wonderful mystery up to you guys, right? But in general, right, our base case is when our program's going to quit, right? So that guy is not a base case. That would be called a recursive case, right, where we need to get a little bit closer. Cool. I've talked for longer than I often do. You guys have about an hour left. I got a couple questions last time as to what to do if you are done, right? This is a nice time to talk about that. Please pause for a second. If you finish a lab, there's about 4 or 5 good options as to things to do. Thing number 1, move on, right? There are more labs. Go to town, right? Have fun with that. Thing number 2, almost everyone's eyes are down. Can I have some eyes up here? Cool. So work on more labs. Thing number 2, come up with your own programming project. Great, right? Thing number 3, help somebody else, right? That's a good one. Thing number 4, oftentimes these labs will have extensions. They are almost always optional. Work on those if you want to. Thing number 5, come up and talk to me about something else that you think doesn't fit into those other categories, but you still think is a reasonable use of your time. Right? Things that are not okay. Working on something else from a different class without first clearing it with me. Right? If you have a test next class, if you've had me before, you probably realize how this is going to go. It's like, oh, sure, you can look at this for a bit. Right? You should be generally working on CS in here, though. Right? That's kind of the idea of this course. Questions on anything from today? Sweet. Good luck. Happy working.